Some breaking news. New Year's Eve. In a local pub, a patron stood up and announced that it was time to get ready, and at the stroke of midnight, every person needs to be standing next to the one person who made his or her life worth living. The embarrassing part, as the clock struck midnight, the bartender was almost crushed to death. I hope you like the joke. A little bit of a New Year banter. We've got a couple of things to have a look at. But, as it is, Happy New Year. And, as I pointed out in the Facebook message, this will also be the first social presentation, so the public one, and the first one actually away from Shadow Crown's website. It's also part of a tradition. Or more so, Shadow Crown's tradition, as in every year up until this one, or including this one, we've watched everybody's Christmas messages, ranging from the parties through to the sovereignty. Listen to what's being said, we've had a look over the year ourselves, and thought to ourselves, well, if that's the case, then from a long-standing tradition even within the family, we'll bring in the new year. So we'll push out the stuff the last year out of the back door and then come in through the front door and bring in the new year. And that's what this is about. So we've been having a look at some of the videos. I'm not going to rerun them as I have done in previous ones. Also because it just makes the video too long. We're going to cover briefly some of the aspects that we need to be looking at. Okay, so moving into the new year. So in and amongst wishing you all well and very best for the new year and all your efforts show some form of fruition, let's move into it. Okay, what have I got? Okay, the supporting document itself that I provide with the video, so also lends itself well as a transcript, covers a few aspects. And in this particular one, what I've done is I've broken it down into 3 parts, and I've basically made it known as the web. So it's kind of introducing you to the complexities of the world, yeah. More importantly, the complexities of the road ahead. Now, why is it so important that Shadow Crown does this and not everybody else? Well, as it's been established over the years, Shadow Crown is kind of an authoritative figure now. It's a bit of a shadow directorate system which works basically for the national interest. Not only is it just simply national interest, but it's the development of nations in one capacity or another. You know? So we kind of want to get involved on in major issues as and when it's needed. Yeah, when it seems to be that the world is falling apart, that there is, shall we say, a strong centre pin in which to anchor onto. Yeah? That's generally what it actually is. That's what Shadow Crown does. It's a social enterprise. It's a community interest company in that regard. Don't necessarily lobby governments. That's too time consuming and so on and so forth. So the idea is, as a directorate system, it's a case of, no, it needs to be done. Simple. I'm not messing around. I'm not going through your channels of lobbying this, lobbying that, and taking, as somebody would point out from previous years, 25 years to sort out the EU. Yeah? Or the membership with the EU. Shadow Crown steps in back in 2009 and addresses it then, hence the reason why such organisations as the Jury Team came about, and then other parties such as UKIP, really Catholic, took swing. Yeah? But that's not what this is about. What it's about is, beyond the complexities and beyond the lobbying and beyond everything else, the web itself, world leadership, environment, and brokerage. Okay, so the three key factors, in and amongst perhaps a little more than half a dozen other aspects which are related to or as linkages within the web itself. When looking back across the past and looking back across efforts being made and moving us into 2017, looking at world leadership, and certainly by no means talking about the New World Order, we're looking at what happens and what is going to be happening with world leaders. With a particular reference, hence the reason this video, and the transcript, because the transcript is a bit more specific, it's more focused. The video itself, it allows us to broaden it. But the specific element is such as, for instance, with the US and their change in leadership, and Russia with movements across in their country. Now, when looking at the historical factors, yeah, it has taken a bit of an astrological event or meteorological event to actually wake the big bear up, or the Russians up. And it's really snowballed from there to now a point where it does show that Russia can work in an international community. And it'd be nice to actually see, from this directorate point of view, see Russia start working with us all just that bit more. Like, for instance, the peace talks across in Syria, because it needs to come to an end now. It's been running long enough. I've threatened in the past that I'll get involved. How am I going to get involved? Well, looking through the archives, you'll see how I got involved in the terms of offering suggestions, or shall we say an equipment list, to be able to sort out and close another war down. So Shadow Crown in itself doesn't necessarily want to get involved, but have to if needs be. But into the new year, things are looking better. And again, it's nice to see that Russia is now getting on board and now working with people. And I'm just hoping that it's not all cloak and dagger stuff, and that people's fears become realised. Yeah? Because it can go one way or the other. Now, with a bit of optimism and looking at activities of what's been happening in and amongst other world leaders, let's see if we can make it actually work. Along with the US, and there being a world player when it comes down to economics, and a world strength when it comes down to the military side of things, is that we can see America shape itself to a point where it becomes a little bit more receptive to its own people. It had the Democratic Party in prior to this year, and it made some headway. Again, there are some fors and againsts the leaders' approach towards things, but it's the same all around, isn't there? There's always going to be fors and against. The issue that we have to address, and that's what we look at over 2017, is if there's more fors than there are against, or if there are more against than there are fors. And that will help us see and choose the direction in which we need to go in. The same with the European Union. We can arc back to that in a moment. But generally speaking, when talking about or identifying leadership and identifying the responsibilities. It is looking towards now, from these peace talks, is showing who and where the terrorism activities are going on, and what needs to be done in the terms of social housing and economics, economic development. Looking at economic development, we can then move into the environment. You see how this is tying itself together now? So from the economic development, look at the environment. Like, for instance, when we look at the Paris Agreement, for those who are not certain of some of the things that I'm talking about and some of the things that are embedded within the actual transcript, there are links in the page which will take you to the areas that will help you come to further understand what I'm talking about. And as is with the training packages, it will allow you then to extend on your own understanding as to what's going on here. So, again, with the Paris Agreement, for environmental changes, it is under question. It has been under question. But for 2017, should it be? Of course it should be. Not under question in the context whereas it should be dismissed or otherwise disregarded, but it does need to be questioned, because you need to look at, for instance, with one of the news saying that by 2030, granted it's about 13 years away, but by 2030 the sustainability of such agreement could cost a country such as ourselves up to 300 billion a year. Now, that being the case, if you amplify that, given the fact that you can fit maybe 20 or 30 UKs within America, can you imagine the amplification of cost on that? Now, whilst that's not an excuse or even a reason for people to not go with it, what it is an opportunity to say, right, why is it going to cost that much? Is there another way, or are there other ways of being able to, shall we say, sort that cost out? Because by the time you're finished, and as some people have rightly pointed out, and it's evident that these green tariffs or these green levies, green tax, and whatnot, gets passed back to us as part of society. So the government's not footing the bill, the economy doesn't want to foot the bill, so society has to. But if wage and, shall we say, income and expenditure ratios are what they are, realistically speaking, is society going to be able to cover that cost? So again, it's looking at these agreements in a much more of a pragmatic approach. These are the things that we need to look forward to and actually address as the years move along, particularly this year. We can then move into the next one. It ideally leads us into a sense of brokerage. Now, the brokerage itself, in this case, based on leadership and based on economics and environment and various other bits and bobs. Looking at the EU, Article 50. Now, there's already, shall we call it, Twitters already bouncing around the internet about, shall we say, the authenticity of Parliament's drive and want to actually trigger Article 50. The concerns are, is it a ruse or an indirect way of saying, yeah, well, you're going to have this, but you're not actually. But again, the reality serves its reminder. The new year is here to offer us the opportunity to actually say, well, okay, let's see it activated, okay, let's see what's going on, what's being proposed on both sides. Okay? And then it gets weighed up from there. Yes, in some ways, the WTO, the World Trade Organizations, should we say the membership with them might be the best thing to do, is to go through that. because it will resolve a lot of arguments. Well, so there's more fors than there are against. Yeah. But when you start looking at the ins and the outs, or the remainers and the leavers, it's interesting to see that even now the leavers are still not accepting. Like, for instance, it's more likened to being a poor loser, yeah, or a bad loser, yeah. We gambled, and it's not working. This is from the centre ground. The government gambled with our treasury and our country in a project. Remember, the facts are there. Doesn't matter whether you're for or against the EU. The facts are there. We gambled our currency, as in the treasury. We gambled our independence to see if we can make a European Union project work. And it's not. This is from a business perspective. This is from the centre ground. This is from understanding what will happen to many other countries if indeed it falls literally flat on its face. So it's one of those scenarios where you pull out, not necessarily to save face, but to save what we currently have. Because you imagine the cost, if it actually went down, of being able to rebuild it back up or become independent again. It's going to be astronomical, isn't it? So again, within 2017, or in this case from March 2017, we start looking at what we're going to be doing, or how this, shall we say, some people have been calling it a divorce. It's not necessarily a divorce, is it? What this new partnership will look like. Naturally, it has to work for everybody, because if reality does really hit home, more specifically with the French looking at things the way they are, and tweets, again, rumours of Italy and various other countries scratching their head, wondering what if. We need to look at the European Union itself. Maybe it's one of them scenarios where I have to start eating humble pie. This hard approach maybe needs to soften itself out in line with a hard approach from us, or rather, as the years have gone by, my hard approach, or Shadow Crown's hard approach, because the upshot is the facts are there. They're there for anybody to find them. Yeah, it's from that again we look back on the actual leadership, for leaders to come to realise, come to understand, and more importantly, accept what is going on. Don't lash out at everybody every turn that you make, because a project may or may not be failing. If it is, deal with it. Yeah. Within that, again, we look at the sustainability of the partnership, the sustainability of the economy, sustainability of having open doors. You've already seen, the Germans have already seen that having too much of a free movement policy is naturally going to cause them problems. Whether it's staged or not, I don't think it is. It was only a matter of time. It was only a matter of time before it actually happened. Yeah? So there's a whole host of stuff to be looking at. It seems quite ominous in a way. It seems very dark and dull and whatnot. But believe it or not, there's actually more good than there is bad. The one thing that seems to be outshining, shall we say, or creating a shadow on all of this, is quite literally the terrorism, isn't it? Tyrannical actions of others, the failing of their own understanding to work towards or with a bigger cause, or, you know, move into space maybe. Whatever the reason may be, the idea is working together. As the years have moved along, this ISIL have not really they've not really shown any reason as to why they're doing what they're doing, other than that they can. They gain following, gain support. So there's no real basis to their argument anymore. Some could even question that it's actually emerging from the Syrian issue, so it's, shall we say, a branch of Syrian defence and leadership. So it's kind of harking back to the leadership. And you'll find that I don't point fingers. It's not because I can't, it's not because I don't have facts, it's because I just think it's a little on the rude side, and not only that, it presents an opportunity for those who are responsible and those who are listening to do something about it. Yeah? Which brings us to the question of, well, who's listening? You may not be fully aware of it yet, but when you start looking down the avenue of government intervention and what some of these other bigger companies can do, then this is here. And there. The idea is the Shadow Crown is here to serve you. Yeah, for betterment. That's what it means, betterment. And that is what we're going to be looking at over 2017. So we've got our web. Yeah. The other stuff that can emerge out of that is such as working towards a far greater level of economic stability. Yeah. Sorting out, as Shadow Crown pointed out last year, based on the benefit system, sorting out the inappropriateness of the benefit system. As some have said through their Christmas videos, messages, sorting out homelessness, poverty, health and well-being, economic progression from the stability. Yeah? Looking at the black markets like China are doing. Yeah? Law covering criminal activities, yeah? Which is a thing of the black markets and inappropriate conducts within other systems, be it social, economic or political. So in amongst many of the things that are taking place, there's a lot to be getting on with. Right? Don't worry too much about the breakup of the EU, because one way or another something will be sorted, assuming the rumours are not true. Right? I'm saying, short and sweet. It is. I've not kept you for 3/4 of an hour or more. Right, there it is. Happy New Year to you all. My best wishes for 2017. You enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your year. And I'll be back soon.